Waking Moments is a story about what is reality and what is nightmare. And so it is fitting that we begin with Harry Kim. See him heading up that corridor on duty? This could be reality or a nightmare, and there's no way to tell, because for Harry Kim, the two are one and the same. For others, the nightmares vary. Tom Paris is flying a shuttle and there's an accident and he's about to be burnt to a crisp. Tuvok shows up on the bridge naked. You may feel free to add your own live long and prosper joke to Tuvok leaving his dangling bits out. Janeway walks through the mess hall to find all her crew have died of old age. And if there's one thing that terrifies Janeway, it's the thought that any of her crew will manage to avoid a premature end. Later on, we hear of others' nightmares secondhand, but the one common theme is that everyone had a nightmare. Now hold on to something, because we are once again going into the mind of Harry Kim, and even in spite of what the evil clown pulled, we find out a greater terror, the most horrifying thought that Harry could possibly imagine. Those of you with weak hearts or small children present may wish to stop the video now.
I've learned from observing Lieutenants Taurus and Paris that humans sometimes require a pretext for being intimate with one another.
Let me emphasize this point once again. I don't write the show. I'm not the one who said every single person has a nightmare, and now let's see what Harry's dreaming about.
Intimate.
Resistance is futile.
I have no idea whether or not Harry always had these personal issues, or if they are the result of the thousands of torments that Janeway has subjected him to over the previous 4 years, but that's neither here nor there. However we got here, there is no mistaking that even in an era where mankind has developed both a sex robot and a flashlight you can fuck, Harry Kim is a messed up individual. And to put this in context, Harry has spent half of Season 4 pursuing Seven and then running away whenever she shows interest. And we now see that Harry's nightmare is that she has finally caught him. I'm starting to get the feeling that Harry has a pathological fear of his own erection. All the nightmares had one common element, the appearance of an alien who looks like he's Aquaman's mortal enemy and has a coat hook for a chin. Everyone's a bit white from their nightmares, especially Tom, but Neelix gives him a nice hot cup of cooking oil to jumpstart the day. Hey, at least garnish it with a stick of butter there, Neelix. Everyone saunters in late onto the bridge.
Burning the midnight oil?
I couldn't. Neelix made me drink it. Janeway looks really out of it today. Chakotay, you ever stab someone and can't remember why? Everyone starts talking about their nightmares, and Chakotay mentions that his was that he was hunting a deer. It may surprise you to learn that despite living in the Midwest, I don't hunt. I'm afraid that while I don't pass judgment on others, I have personal moral issues with getting up at 4 in the morning. Chakotay likewise is anti-hunting because even though he's an embodiment of American Indian stereotypes, that's also mixed in with a healthy dose of Perrier drinking, SUV driving, I touched a dolphin nature adoration that seems to have convinced Hollywood that Indians ate wild berries and used spiritual power to transform the love of the land directly into teepees. So while Chakotay's people may hunt, it's only part of the maintaining of the traditions of his people that he personally has chosen to break with so that Star Trek can remain PC to keep the liberals happy, and yet Chakotay gets to keep that psychedelic gizmo to meditate without the drugs to make the conservatives happy, so everyone with an agenda wins. Anyway, a group nightmare session is clearly enough of a reason to head off to the magic meeting room, but alas, Harry is still sleepy and can't be woken up. Though even unconscious, he has as much effect on the story as he normally does when awake. Poor dumb Harry. Along the way there, I should mention Janeway manages to arm twist Tuvok into telling her his nightmare, and like you'd expect, makes it clear just how bemused she is at that news. Harry might be in danger, but nothing's getting in the way of Janeway's enjoyment at the misfortunes of others. Someone get me some warm water so I can put Harry's hand in it. Doc says that it's impossible to wake Harry and the two other unconscious people, having tried everything from cortical stimulation to a kiss by a handsome prince. Until he can find out what's happening, everybody gets drugs to avoid falling asleep. With all these questions about the alien and what's going on, Chakotay figures it's as good a time as any to seize control of the episode away from Janeway by appealing to his Indian abilities. His sacred Game Boy doubles as a lucid dream inducer, so he can go to sleep but remain in control and wake himself up if he sees the moon. Because of this, it'll be Seven's job to take over Chakotay's normal role of just standing there and barely reacting to what's going on. So Chakotay heads down to sickbay and recites the blessed words to go into lucid dreaming, and of course the first image that comes to mind when I say lucid is chasing a deer through a spaceship with a spear, right? I half expected to see Neelix running out of the kitchen and chasing a piglet with a meat cleaver to complete this cartoon. The moon helps Chakotay realize he's dreaming, so when the deer turns into an alien, he fights back, and they can now talk. I'll tell you right now, we have no idea what the hell is the deal with these guys, because they keep lying about it, and the slumber party race is so goofy anyway. Let's just forget this whole scene and just chalk it up to Coathookface being a dick. The alien tells them to pass a 6-planet system nearby, and after Chakotay wakes up, they head there, and the sleeping crew members awaken. The doctor is trying to properly catalog the nightmares, so he asks Harry about his, but with 7 present, he runs away, cursing his terrifying erection. Neelix now finally shares his nightmare with us.
Next thing I knew, I was being boiled alive in a pot of my own Leola root stew.
Talk about a nightmare.
That's odd. I dreamt that Neelix was cooking in his own pot too, and I feel like $1,000,000. After discussing their dreams for a while, there's an attack by the aliens, and Voyager is quickly shut down and overrun.
You seem to have a knack for provoking strangers these days.
I can't argue with that. Voyager will get attacked by Space Gandhi. Overwhelmed, they're brought into the cargo bay to form their escape plan. They can try to get through one of those locked Jeffries tubes, but that would require a diversion. Luckily, Seven concludes the most logical course of action is to stage a fight, but as she hasn't done that before, it means just picking someone and whooping their ass. But who would be so unfortunate as to have a cyborg with at least 3 times the strength of a normal human to grab them and start savagely beating them?
What the hell are you doing?
Creating a diversion.
Ensign Kim, it is your fault we have been captured.
Tom, try to get into Jeffries tube. If you two get them, I'll deal with this.
As Chakotay goes to open the Jeffries tube, he spots the moon and realizes this is all still a dream, so he taps his hand and wakes himself up for real this time. It turns out that shortly after Chakotay went under originally, everyone else had passed out in spite of the drugs, so the doctor's the only one left. By looking at their brainwaves, which remember the ship dutifully records all the time thanks to the Patriot Act, they see their patterns all match up and conclude that they must be sharing the same dream where Voyager's been taken over. So Chakotay figures they'll have to keep looking for the alien based upon the dream energy being given off, while the doctor cooks up some Starfleet Red Bull. He locks sensors onto the stuff that dreams are made of and sets course. Back in the dream world, the crew debates whether or not this is a dream, but despite Chakotay's vanishing and the explanation of how this could all be so easily shut down so that they could be taken over, Janeway still isn't convinced. Meanwhile, Paris has opened the Jeffries tube while B'Elanna was sitting in on the discussion, showing that even when you want to access an area designed specifically for the engineers, Paris is still the go-to person over the chief engineer. The chief engineer then follows this up by heading to engineering and, during power-up, manages to start a core breach. Oy, whatever that was can't be good. With the core about to breach, we get any further proof the audience would need that this is a dream. Torres immediately puts up a containment field to protect the rest of the ship, but in a moment she'll say that the warp core breach will destroy the ship. And knowing that a warp core breach will destroy the ship, she and Tuvok are desperate to escape death by standing in the hallway. Not getting the escape pods, mind you, just standing in the hall, watching the door to make sure the explosion doesn't try to follow them. I'm certainly not a demolitions expert, but I still think that if a bomb will tear titanium bulkheads apart and vaporize the rest, locking it behind a 2-inch door is about as useful as breathing into a paper bag. To add to this scene's schizophrenia, Janeway heroically stays behind in the room with the explosion instead of making the preferred choice, which is standing a couple of yards further away. Afterwards, she comes out unscathed, as well as possessing all the powers of the Fantastic Four. They deduce that this must be a dream, and, feeling quite pleased with themselves, remember that Chakotay said that if you know you're in a dream, you can take control of it, so they plan to do just that. Meanwhile, Chakotay's having a hard time staying awake as they near the planet where the aliens are. He beams down to find them all laid out in a big cave, sharing in the dream world that they've carefully constructed so that they can take over Voyager for, well, no real reason other than the fact that they're supposed to be the bad guys. There's some bullshit about how they're doing this so they can destroy the Voyager crew, but if so, why haven't they gotten around to it yet, if it's something that they actively do? Or if it's just simply letting them wither and die, why are they going to all this trouble than just letting them dream away until they wither and die? I mean, surely if you have control over a dream world, you can find more interesting things to do than stand around and hold a gun, right? Anyway, as Chakotay examines a sleep-inducing device, I believe it's a looped broadcast of Shades of Grey, he's about to take his Red Bull, but decides to give it to one of the aliens, reasoning that in its frail state, the heavy dose should wake it up and he can bully it into turning the device off. His backup plan is wonderfully pragmatic. If I don't wake up in 5 minutes, hit me with a photon torpedo. Chakotay passes out and informs the alien in the dream world about the situation, and he capitulates as expected. The epilogue shows everyone now has insomnia, starting with Chakotay. Boy, if only he had a gizmo that he could use to induce sleep in himself. Wouldn't that be useful? Post-episode follow-up. Stupid Neelix's moment is giving Tom a cup of cooking oil to drink. Run out of hot dog water, Hedgehog? Final score for Waking Moments is 6 out of 10. The story is well paced, but the script spends half the time using clever elements to keep you guessing, with the other half being incapable of handling even the barest amount of scrutiny. Unlike, say, Deadlock, which was clearly an idiotic romp from beginning to end, Waking Moments has just enough brains to make you realize how it could have been incredible instead of just another forgettable episode.
I'm afraid.